Saturday morning, 4 window spotlight turns to stain. Sunday bed sheets and back again in the end. Just swap this right around. After all, I found it. Circle K, shitty coffee, hunger pains to me. The guys on the corner with a broken can of an
East Village, so it was me and a bunch of taxi drivers at like 1 in the morning on the treadmill, and I smelled the worst. So
edges of a trashy bar piece, I raised my eyebrow when somebody called me low.
And because I was eating like raw cabbage and apples and crazy food combining and you know, raw food is awesome, but I wouldn't ever now say you should go 100%. I would say aim for high raw and look for real foods, because a lot of foods that we're eating now, like the fruits and vegetables, they're products of domestication in the past couple hundred years especially. So we can get back to more wild foods and even like really clean animal products. For me, that really worked.
Like
and now
what?
you have to,
Like
what's that?
What is really clean animal products?
Like grass-fed animal products, raw grass-fed dairy, especially the fats. I'm not a huge fan of animal proteins. That's not a big deal for me. It's more about plant protein from hemp seed, chia seed, bee pollen, which is, you know, it's flowers, and then animal fats. So that would be, especially like for me, butter, cream works really well. Dairy kefir. So I'll get whole milk, and then I put like these little cultures, and they look like cottage cheese, and they're called kefir grains. And it's similar to yogurt in a way. And the cultures themselves look like cottage cheese, and they feed on the lactose in the milk. So there's no lactose in here anymore. So if someone's lactose intolerant, they could just drink this all day and nothing would ever happen. They'd never get gas. Kefir grains. And it's like a symbiotic colony of yeast and bacteria. Little galaxies of life, and then they just eat up the milk, and then this is the byproduct of it. And I'm going to make a video in a couple days showing how I do this, and we just strain it off, drink the liquid, and then pour fresh milk on top of the kefir grains. And since I was doing that, because I had candida issues with all the fruit I was eating and all the raw desserts, so anytime I would eat fruit, I'd get gas, like quick. And you know, it's like supposed to be a natural diet. Maybe everybody should have gas. That's what I'm thinking. Like maybe gas is natural. Like, you know, gorillas and chimpanzees. Maybe we're supposed to fart. You know, like I don't know. And maybe everybody eats fiberless dead food, and that's why they don't fart. That's what I was thinking to myself. But it's bad digestion. So now that I'm eating stuff like, and we made this last week, I can pass this around too. It's a little heavy. I think, yeah, let's pass it around.
You could get a bowl from there, maybe.
Yeah,
get a bowl.
I like this lady. She knows what she's talking about. We'll get a bowl, and then just adding in, even if whether or not animal products or not, just eating more fermented foods is huge. And it's all about introducing that good bacteria into your body. And that overweighs like the candida. It's a good analogy is almost to think of it as like a circular table, and there's only so many chairs. The idea kind of stemmed from initially just wanting to live a lifestyle without a lot of bills. You know, create it so you can build a small cottage, have solar panels, have a gray water system, buy some land, maybe buy like an acre of property for like $10,000, and plant, you know, 100 fruit and nut trees and raspberry bushes everywhere. And in about 5 years, you know, basically you'd be living pretty much for free in a way, besides your property tax and whatever else. And then what you could do is, if you wanted to continue to work, use your money for fun stuff now, like vacations or whatever, electronics or what, more of a luxury good idea. Not like when I say luxury good, I mean like things that you don't necessarily need to survive. More like the fun stuff. And if you can live your life like that, and I always wondered, like, why hasn't our system been set up like that, where all of the necessities are almost taken care of, and we can still have this place, we can still do everything else, but we can work to buy fun stuff instead of just food and all the basic necessities of life. But luckily, like, we can design that lifestyle on our own, and that's really what permaculture and the food forest idea is all about. It takes a lot of work at first, and I think that's what discourages a lot of people, but once it's set up, it's kind of a self-contained system that feeds itself, and it's a lot easier to maintain because we're growing a lot of perennials, and we're really emulating nature, because nature is a perennial polyculture, and that means, one, most of the plants in the area live for a very long time, and then two, it means that there's a lot of biodiversity. It's a polyculture, many different plants. And on the other side of that spectrum is the annual monoculture that dominates agriculture. Wait, what did I say? Monoculture, yeah. Annual monocultures, yeah. Sorry. I thought I said agriculture twice. And that's the dominant scene of agriculture right now. It's the annual monocrops. And there's nothing more, destructive to the planet than annual monocrops, because they need, every year, they need to be harvested, and they need to be replanted and sprayed, and the soil needs to be aerated and packed down again, and it's just like a never-ending cycle of fossil fuels to make the annual monocrops grow. And then plus the soil that they use is like basically a sponge. There's no nutrients in it itself. They just fill a bunch of petroleum-based chemicals in this sponge that used to be soil, and then the corn or the soybeans just grow out of that. And it's basically like clear-cutting a forest every single year. When we drive around and we think like amber waves of grain and the good old farmer and the corn, I mean, those used to be forests, and those used to be wetlands, and most of all those crops are just going towards feeding animals the wrong kind of food. So we can live in a more horticulturally based system where we're doing a lot of different plants and fruit trees, nut trees, modeling our design more on nature, because nature has different levels of food. There's usually about 6 levels in a forest, and you can start at your ground root level, and like maybe that's where you'd be growing your mushrooms and some of your root crops like sweet potatoes, and then you can go more to like a lower ground cover like white clover that maybe gets to about this high. Like I plant white clover all over the place, and that way I don't have to mow the lawn anymore, because it just gets to be about that high, and there's little white flowers, so our bees just go crazy over it, and I don't have to mow the lawn. Like my dad has a big riding lawnmower, and every week, he's on it for like a good hour, and this way it's just very low maintenance, and because I don't live there full time, so I want to just do as much low maintenance stuff as possible. And then you go a little higher, maybe it's like your herbs like this, and you're thinking like basil and maybe turmeric and anything that's going to be this tall, maybe blueberries, and you go a little bit higher and you get like your small fruit trees or like your Nanking cherries that are maybe like this tall. And then it's like 20 feet tall, and then maybe you're getting up to the upper canopies like your coconut palms and your massive pine nut trees and your pecan trees that are 70 feet and avocado trees that are 70 feet tall. So you're harvesting from like this whole 3-dimensional layer now instead of just the one, But like taking care of my family and doing all this stuff and preparing for the apocalypse. And so I got the 2 acres, drilled the well, got the greenhouse all set up, and so no matter what, and that's the beauty of this, is that I could come at that whole talk with like, we got to get ready and we have to worry about GMO foods and everything, but in reality, we could be living in like a perfect world, and this would be the same exact thing that you'd want to do. You'd always want to plant passion fruit vines in your backyard, and kiwis and grapes and everything. It's just a fun way to live, and you have the food really close to you, and it's good for the kids to grow up in that kind of environment with like trees around, and for them to actually know where their food comes from instead of coming from a box and a carton. It's I think it creates a different child. And so it's more about that lifestyle, and now I'm not as I worry about the future and stuff, so no matter what, like, it's good to have that thing. We'll see what happens. Does anyone know who Cliff High is?